श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। So we will do the invocation mantra. Chaitanyam sarvagam sarvam sarvabhutaguhashayam yat sarva vishayatitam tasmai sarvavidhe namaha. So it's been 3 weeks since we met the last time, and I thought we will just quickly summarize what we have learned. As you all know, this Upadeha Sahasri, it's itself an Upanishad by nature. Even though it is a Prakarana Grantaha and one of the foremost Prakarana Grantaha, which is suggested by Adi Shankara to learn. So this one, there's also another one called Naishkarmya Siddhihi. So Naishkarmya Siddhihi is another text written by Sureshwaracharya. And the third one is called Jivan Muktihi, written by Vidyarana Swami. So 3 different authors, and but they are all from same schools of thought, from Advaitic school of philosophy. And this particular text is called Upadeha Sahasri. The first chapter we saw was the longest one. It's called Upodghata Prakaranam, or an introduction to the text. So just like every text has got an introduction, this also has got an introduction where we saw the Sadhana Chatushtayam and how one should start Brahma Vidya. Then we saw how knowledge alone can free you from samsara. And there was a discussion or an argument between the second half of the chapter about karma and jnanam, and how the Advaitins believe that karma and jnanam need not coexist, and whereas the Purva Pakshaha had put a very strong argument that karma and jnanam can coexist. Adi Shankara believes, or the Acharya believes in this text, and he has proved evidently that karma is equal to ignorance and jnanam is equal to knowledge. So where there is knowledge, ignorance cannot exist. And where there is ignorance, knowledge cannot exist. Because these two are opposites. They are vairihi, they are enemies. And both of them cannot exist at the same time. Just as darkness and brightness are entirely 2 different aspects. Then karma jnana samuchayam also not possible. So we saw the khandanam or different explanations about how the karma and jnanam cannot coexist together. We saw elaborately in that chapter. So we did not try to go to that, but I thought we'll just summarize quickly what we saw so that we know the context of the chapters. The second chapter we saw Pratisheda Prakaranam. So Pratishedaha means negation of attributes or negating. It's called Neti Neti Vakyaha. So the question is, how do we negate the aham, ahankaraha? So when you say ahankara, it is not only ahankara of everything else, including the concept of aham also is ahankara. The concept of I sense also is to be negated. So once we negate all of this, the sthula prapanchaha, sukshma prapanchaha, the karana prapanchaha, and finally you also negate the I sense also, then what you are left is only with the atma or the consciousness, which cannot be negated anything further. Because the knower itself cannot be negated. It is because of the knower being there, the knowledge is occurring, the known objects are being seen. But the term called knower is also a name. See, the word knower, we say, is also a word, is a name. The name also has to be removed. The name itself has to be removed, and understanding that knower is none other than the atma or the consciousness has to be reinstated. So that is the most difficult part of it. How does someone negate our own self? Say if the knower is not there, then who is there? The question comes. If I am not there, then who is there? So our answer should be, if I am not there, when I say I am not there as the knower, as the term knower, but I am there as the knowledge or the consciousness, I am always present in that form. So that was the essence of the message in the Pratisheda Prakarana. So we saw a story also in that about Gandharaha, when a person was blindfolded and left in a forest, and just by one wise person came and told him that if you want to get out of this forest, you'll have to follow simple instructions. And he remembered all the things which are said by the wise person about the instructions: turn left, turn right, go straight, turn 2 steps to the right, you will come to the road. So all of them he believed 100% without arguing. There was no choice for him because he is left in a forest blindfolded. Any wild animal can come and kill him. And because he is blindfolded, he does not know which way to start. So one has to trust the Shastram, one has to trust the wise person. Here also, we are blindfolded with our emotional attachment, emotional entangle we are. And to remove this blindfolding, the Shruti comes to our help, Shastra. Shastram says, you are that, you are not this. So they say, then there should not be any doubt saying that, oh, what if the Shastram is saying the truth or not? What if I believe the Shastram and I end up in a bigger problem than what it is? You cannot end up in a bigger problem because we already are in a bigger problem. You cannot get much worse than what we are, than knowing through the Shastram what it can be. So that is we saw in the Pratisheda Prakaranam, the 2nd chapter. The 3rd chapter we saw Ishvara Atma Prakaranam, where the Ishvara and the Atma is not different. And we saw different types of doshas come into existence when a person believes that he is the Jivaha. Fourth chapter, we saw Jivan Mukti Prakaranam or Tattva Jnana Prakaranam. In this, we saw how to be free, how a Jivan Mukta should lead a life, or what are the concessions given by the Shastram for such a person. So there was an interesting discussion between the Purva Paksha and the Advaitins about Prarabdha Karma, Agami Karma and Sanchita Karma. and how this karma should be applied to even jnani also. And we saw very evidently the acharyas argued that case very, very well, that this agami karma is not applicable to a jnani, because the person has already accepted the fact that he is not a doer. The doership is done by the physical body, which is programmed to work as per the niyati or the prakriti itself. So it is a product of the prakriti, it is matter only, and it is programmed to do as it is supposed to do. The mind also is included in the matter also. Because mind also is a product of prakriti only. So thereby agami karma is not applicable for such a person. What about the prarabdha karma? The prarabdha karma is applicable for a jnani also, we saw. Because the prarabdha karma is the one which is given birth to the physical body. The jnanis or the ajnani also has got prarabdha karma. Both of them are living their life because there is a prarabdha karma there. But the jnani has got a view that he understands what prarabdha karma is. And he also knows that it is something which he cannot shake it off or completely forget about it. So he has endurance called titikshaha. So one of the 6 qualities of the person is titikshaha, samadhanaha, titikshaha. So forbearance. So he has got the value called titikshaha. So kastamo, nashtamo, whatever is there, if he has got a problem, he undergoes the particular problem and lives with it, knowing that it will come to an end, this janma, and after that, there is no prarabdha for him. Because the physical body is not there anymore. And prarabdha karma, what does it do for you? It gives you physical body. The physical body, you do karma. And the karma is not done by the jnani anymore in terms of cognitively. Physically, they are being done by the body, which is part of the prakriti. So that way, prarabdha karma also is not there for, it's there for the jnani, but it is only for the particular lifespan. And sanchitam also is not done because sanchita karma, what does it do? Sanchita karma will actually bring you forward another physical body. Sanchitam is what is all the gathered punyam and papam sitting there for fruition. When in this janma itself, the person says, I do not have a physical body, or I do not need a physical body because I am akarma, akarta, I am avokta. Then the Shastram tells that for such a person, there is no requirement to have physical body anymore. He is jivan muktaha. So a jnani is free from agami karma, he is free from sanchita karma, but he is subject to prarabdha karma only to the extent of the life which he is living now. So this is called the Tattva Jnana Prakaranam or Jivan Mukti Prakaranam we saw. Then in chapter 5, it is called Buddhi Aparadha Prakaranam, or the mistakes committed by the intellect. And this, we saw a story, or starts the story called the Udanka Rishi. So Udanka Rishi is one of the rishis who was doing great tapas. And Rishi, after due to his tapas, he gets a boon from Vishnu. So Vishnu comes in front of Udanka Rishi and asks, what does he want? He says, I want Amritatvam, or I want immortality which is enjoyed by the Devas. So even though the Rishi was a jnani, even though the Rishi was contemplating on that particular truth, when the time came to ask what he wanted, he chose what? Amritatvam, immortality. So Amritatvaha means what? It means immortality from death. So when you say amritatvaha from death means there is some resemblance or some thought about the person going or leaving the physical body. So despite the knowledge being there, despite the knowledge having a person studying Shastra for many years, repeatedly studying Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, all of them, and living a life as given the Shastram, it is also possible for the person to make that mistake. It is not an intentional mistake, it is just a mistake committed because there is some sort of an error in perception, or there is some sort of a carelessness. Suddenly when you have become a sannyasi, supposing, there are many sannyasis are here, but somebody has become a sannyasi just because one likes the life of sannyasi. I like to be like a sannyasi, have an orange robe, and I like the respect being given to them. So you take up the life of sannyasa when you are not fully ready for that lifestyle. So there is some balance residue in you which is not fully transitioned yet into the lifestyle, correct? So that is why sannyasam is not for everybody. And you do not become a sannyasi also. Not everybody become a sannyasi because it is a particular lifestyle. Just like karma yogi is a lifestyle, sannyasi also is a lifestyle. Both of them are pursuing jnanam only. Sannyasi also pursues jnanam, karma yogi also pursues jnanam, but their realms of operations are different. In sannyasi, the pursuit is only for jnanam only. There is no other activity being done there. A sannyasi need not do any activities, need not perform any karma, need not teach, need not be part of society. He is a person just can be alone just by himself. So they are called Paramahamsa sannyasis. So the Paramahamsa sannyasis, what their only purpose is Atma Jnanam, and they are just by themselves. They do not have any contact with the world. They do not come in contact with the world or go travel or teach or this kind of things. So they are a different category of sannyasi described in the Jivan Mukti Prakaranam. In fact, the Jivan Mukti Prakaranam is very elaborate. If you see the conditions of the Paramam sannyasi, it is impossible for one to become sannyasi. It is very difficult. And only a person who has become resolute and has chosen to live the lifestyle which is entirely just by alone. So you cannot see the person at all in lifestyle. If you keep looking for the person, you may see him some fleeting moment sometime in some place. And by the time you go and see him or her, he would have disappeared from that place already. So these people normally operate in remote areas, villages, or extreme, very low population areas. You cannot see them. Unlike the sannyasis which are very popular. So most of the sannyasis we see here, they are all they're teachers, or they are taken a lifestyle to teach and to be with the Shastram, contemplate, and also lead a lifestyle which is convenient for that particular lifestyle which you're leading. So this Udanka Rishi also has got a similar type. He was leading a lifestyle like this. And then when the time came for him to ask for freedom, that I want to be one with the Bhagavan, I want to freedom for myself, he asked for Amritattvam from Indra. So instead of asking for Amritattvam from one's own nature, he put Indra there. So naturally, he has to be accommodated. So Indra, he came, he was not happy, Indra being given this position. And Indra came in a different form, like a Chandala he came. And the way it was positioned, that particular thing, he thought it is urine. And he suspected that how can such a Amritattvam, which is supposed to be the nectar of the Devas, be brought by a person who is a Chandala. So the person looked at a physical body, the appearance of the person, then he mistook the Amritattvam to be a different product. And he refused. Right? So he refused it, saying, Mutra Ashankaha Yata Uddankaha amritam na agrahit. You saw that, right? So the same way, tatha bhayajantuhu karma phala nashaha atmagyana agrahit. So just as the Uddanka Rishi was afraid of not letting go of his purity or letting go of his purity by consuming amritatvaha, which is given by a chandala. Okay. And because what he thought, if I consume amritatva, supposing even if he has amritatva, supposing, and it's impure, like Atma is always pure. If you think Atma is impure, then what do you have? You always have the feeling that I am not clean. So you will not pursue this particular path. So the example was given in the context of how a person can forget the nature of the Atma, being Akarta, being Shuddha, Shuddha Chaitanya, and have the wrong feeling that I am impure, I am a sufferer, all these things. So the superimposition happens because of erroneous perception, and it can happen even to the most exalted person or the most learned person also sometimes. That is why Nidhyasanam is prescribed. That is why Shravanam is prescribed. See, a person may be Jnani, but he will still be doing Shravanam with the teacher. Nidhyasanam also done by teaching. It is because the habitual error which can come should never come. So by repeatedly being in the understanding the same thing, he or she does not forget, and it doesn't, the thought even does not come. See, 3 weeks, 4 weeks class for lunch, say 4 weeks this will break. Suddenly if I say Upodgata Prakaranam, Upodgata Prakaranam, what is this? So we strike, we think about it. Correct. What is Nitya Prakaranam? So the remembrance is not there. Correct. So it is because by habitually we are not trained to remember everything and to study everything and to assimilate everything. So it takes a lifelong experience for someone to be with the text and understand what it is. And once it is understood clearly, then the knowledge is not shaken easily. So Tata Bhaya Jantu, the same way all the Jantus, Jantu means the living beings, are afraid of Karma Pala Nashaha. See, all the Punyam which I have done in this Janma will all be lost. So what will I become next Janma? Today this Janma I am actually enjoying well. And I want to have the same lifestyle or better lifestyle next Janma. At the Janmatla Kuda na apni. Is it correct? Everybody has got the same feeling, right? This Janma, luckily, I have been very lucky. Everybody thinks is going well. I got a good husband, wife, good job, nalla property, good son, Matipunna, everything is there. Next Janma, I should be a better person. Ide madri continue now. Maybe better than this. And I should have a clean life, long life. As for me to enjoy this much better. So the fear of this, losing things, makes the person not study Shastram or not helps the person, in some way or the other, to forget this. So karma phala nashaha atma jnana agrahit. So because of this fear of losing punyam due to karma, the tapas or this knowledge will not be available for the person. So you will see a person coming in between, doing some jnanam here and there, again going back, again coming back to class. After some time, 3 years, he disappears again, comes back again. So this is because the doubt is lingering in the mind of the person. So there's always a contradiction between what I am doing right or not. He's validating whether by studying Shastram I'm getting the benefit or not. And how the benefit is getting, the benefit is being valued by the karma punyam. He's equating to the punyam there. So Shastram padija punyam jasti adumo. Will my life will be better? You know what I'm saying? So when a person thinks when life is better means what times it will be better. Your life cannot be better in terms of your physical living. A physical living is something which you already have. I mean, you have to go through the process of karma anyway. Shastram cannot correct that perception, cannot correct that particular thing. But what Shastram can correct going forward is understand this wrong notions about prarabdha karma or about agami karma, about sanchita karma, and make you a better person to live and take them on the right manner, so that you do not get affected by this vagaries of life. Whereas most people come to study Shastram or who just be exposed just to come there, they have this view that something is going to happen to them. For 3 years, they come and ask me, how long should I study Shastram? And after 4 years, will I get what I want? I said, it depends on what you want. I said, I do not know what you want. No, will my life will be better? I said, see, your life will be better in terms of what it is, in terms of Atma Jnana. But if you're asking for something about material benefit or you become something richer, that is different topic altogether. So when they have some expectation around this, that is where the divide comes. So this Buddhi Aparadha Prakaranam addresses that particular aspect of correcting the person's vision, correcting the vision, the mistake in the buddhi, not in the physical thing. See, our thinking is wrong, so your thinking has to be corrected. And when the thinking is corrected, it is in the right direction, then everything goes right. Then second verse, he gave an example of how the boat which is there. So they give the nauka. So nauka is the boat, and how, and the boat is, the person is traveling in a boat, and the boat goes, but the trees are moving in the opposite direction. So the person thinks that the trees are moving. So that the trees in reality are not moving at all. Due to the inertia or the movement of the boat, you going forward, the objects seem to just keep passing away. But the trees are the same. Next time, tomorrow also, when you go to the same thing, the tree will be there. If the boat is steady, tree will be there. The tree will not move. Because our mind keeps moving very fast, our thoughts keep moving very fast, the objects seem to come and fleet and go, and that is being taken as the Satyam. So buddhihi tata chalati iva, dhyayati iva means the Atma, which is the intellect or intellect, but untouched by the intellect. Buddhihi tata chalati iva, dhyayati iva, drishyate iva. So the Atma now is being seen as, or the one which is moving, chalati iva, and dhyayati iva. Because of this thing, wrong perception, it is also seen in a different manner also. So the Atma is thinking. So we feel that the Atma is moving, or the Atma is being seen like this. So it is because of the wrong perception. Because the Atma does not know. But due to the association between the Atma and the mind, or Chidabhasaha, this Chidabhasaha, this borrowed consciousness now becomes the Atma, and then this Atma continues to exist for the person in real life as the Atma. So the original Atma is forgotten. The original Atma which was there, intact, is forgotten. The new Atma which is being copied and takes existence is now being enjoyed by this enjoyer, and all the activities are being done and all the superimposition are being done on this Atma, which is not the real one. So that's what we saw in that particular verse number 2. So because of this samsara vibhramaha, so the delusion of being a samsari, I have to do so many things, I'm busy, cannot do this, are wrong notions. So the ahankara, what does it do? It exactly wants this. It wants to be under control all the time. It does not want even for a second to be without control. If we let the ahankara drive ourselves, we say, whatever you want, you think I'll do. This is ahankara. I'm saying that now I got full control of what you're doing. So such a person does things not rationally. He will just do things depending on what a person thinks. Right? So you can do whatever you want, study, make notes, etc. But the ahankara, this aham notion, must be uprooted so that ahankara does not thrive. So we must not let the ahankara thrive for a very long time. See, ahankara will be there. I'm not saying that from tomorrow onwards, I'll drop ahankara. Nobody else. It takes a lot of time for someone to resolve the ahankara. For that, one has to understand what ahankara is. You cannot, it is something not to be dropped or something not to be removed. You have to understand what ahankara is and manage it. Saying that it is something which is part of the structure. And this I notion which is there is the one which is making me do all these things, and the sufferings, the pain and the pleasure, the dvandaha, all of them are attributed to this falsified I, due to which I am going through all this samsara vibhramaha. So once I remove cognitively, physically you cannot do anything. You still are the same person, same husband, wife, nothing has changed. But what do? Now you look at different perspective. Oh. So you become a little bit detached. You develop a sense of, loneliness, to some extent. And in that, you'll find happiness. That you are no longer dependent on somebody's happiness. So now, if somebody doesn't call you for a party, you're not worried about it. Or if somebody, you don't go to somebody's house, you don't get bad about it. You are just by yourself. You do not need a company for making you happy, because you as a person are just happy by yourself. How does it happen? By constantly living in the wake of the Shastra. So constantly living a life of dharma and doing Shravadam, Maranam, Nididhyasa. So if you have that routine there, slowly the mind will actually just let you go. It will not hold you there anymore. But the moment you say, I don't have anything to do, supposing, say, I give you break for next 6 months, no class, no Samani class, no Upanishad class, nothing there. What will happen? It will all consume, correct? Because by nature, we are human beings. We have to be active. If you don't have anything to do, what will you do? You will find something, phone, or you want to go and drive somebody's place. Somebody will come and say, oh, free, let me come and drop it. See, today is Vasanti's birthday, right? Today is 13th. Today, I wanted to take her out today, something like this. But then she asked me, we can't go out today. I told him, she understands. Because I do not have any time in between. In the morning we have class, then afternoon we have class. 4:30 I got Sastrama class. 7 o'clock Bhagavad Gita class. So there is really no time in between for doing anything at all. So the person also understands, and she is not interested because she's a Vedanti by herself. So when a person understands this philosophy, then nobody feels offended about it. Oh, today is a birthday, what will the person feel? I didn't buy a rose for her, or I got a rose for him. All these things will come because our mind gets occupied by these concepts when you do not have anything else to do. But when you have this, becomes a lifestyle, a nishta, right? So this is called yoga nishta. This is the lifestyle which you follow. Then everything will follow. They will all leave you one by one. They will look at you and they will say, oh, Pushpa is very busy in class. Kitta varvanda. I don't want to come nearby. Because that particular position, that particular class, that particular time, initially is a disturbance for you or everybody else. And initially it will be a problem for you also, because you will not be spared just like that. There will be initially hiccups, problems, pointings, everything will come there. And you do feel bad about it. But then after some time you get used to it, because it doesn't bother you anymore. The person says, what is the point of telling this person? He doesn't listen anyway. He is going to continue the class anyway, or he is going to attend the class anyway. So let us not do something else. So this is how the mind has to be brought into control. So that is what he says here. When you say drop the ahankara, or when you say solve the ahankara, this is how the person slowly withdraws and becomes free from samsara vibhramaha. This is what we saw in verse number 3. Then verse number 3, he gives the same example as the trees which are going in the other direction. See, pratilomyaha anilomaha means, pratiloma means going in the opposite direction, and anilomaha means going in the same direction. So dhyayati iva shrutihi vadati. So the word iva indicates, if you look at the third verse, the last word, in verse number 5. See, Shruti Vadati, see here. So, Dhyayati Iva Itihi Shrutihi. So, in this way, the person meditates, or this person looks at this samsara as mithya, as an appearance. Then the person becomes free from samsara. I think verse number 4 we stopped. Is it correct? We stopped verse number 4. Okay. So we'll do verse number 4. So up to this,
four we did, right? So 5 we 4 almost we finished. Yeah.
Okay. Because we are doing a revision anyway, we'll do just a 4.
Okay.
Just to do that. Chaitanyam pratibhimbena vyapto bodho hi jayate Chaitanyam pratibhimbena vyapto bodho hi jayate buddhehe shabdhadi basastaha buddhehi shabdhadir basastaha tena momuhyate jagat. So Chaitanyaha pratibimbaha. So this Chaitanyam also is referred as Chidabasaha. So when the Chaitanyam gets infused with the mind, so the mind is the first place where it gets connected. There is no physical connection with the mind. There is only a cognitive connection with the mind. But that is the way it is structured. The whole physical body, the body mind sense complex, along with the mind, it is structured in such a way that it just connects naturally. So when that happens, the reflection is immediately available for use. So the reflection of the consciousness is now appearing in the mind. So the pratibimbaha. So bimbaha means the image, and the pratibimbaha is the reflection of the consciousness. So chidabasaha chitchayaha. So chitchaya aveshataha. We saw in dirdishivekaha. Right? So aveshataha means uduri paidari. The one which enters into something is called aveshaha. So when this chidabasaha or this chitchaya enters into the mind, then this particular ahankara takes over now. So ahankara here forms or takes the form of the mind, and it starts to act or starts to imitate as the Atma. So it is very, very tricky situation where you do not know what is happening there. See, if somebody tries to analyze Physically also you cannot find out. Because consciousness being something cannot be quantified, right? It is something which cannot be arrived at by anything at all. Only the Pramanam tells you consciousness is like this. So if you go and search for consciousness, you will never be able to find it. So a doctor also will not know whether a person is conscious or not. He will only tell whether a person is conscious in terms of the prana. When we say a person is conscious, what do we say? We say the person is conscious because he is or she is a person alive because he is alive bodily or prana is function. This is what is the understanding of 99% of the people. Who is conscious, correct? So, but when we say, he is consciousness, when we say, or he is conscious, the conscious term is called Chidabhasa. Have you got it? The word is called Chidabhasa. The word consciousness is called not Chidabhasa, it is Atma. So because of the infusion of the Pratibimba, this consciousness now becomes or imitates or it becomes as the Ahankara and starts to function as the Atma. There is really no division at all. See, functionality same. But one is Akarta, one is Karta. Consciousness is Akarta and Pratibimbaha Chitta is Karta. Because it now starts to think. It starts to now operate. And Aham comes into existence and Idam comes into existence. This is my body, this is my mind, this is my sense organs. All of them comes into existence simultaneously. So when you wake up in the morning at 4:30 or 5:30, whatever time you wake up from deep sleep state, at that time, immediately are you cognizant, you are definitely knowing that Aham is there, correct? And immediately you know that I am seeing. Or when you open your eyes, you say I am seeing, my heart is beating, my legs are walking. How? Because this connection is instant. There is no time gap. There is no distance between the Atma and this mind. If there's a distance between the mind, then you would have taken another half an hour for you to know what it is. I mean, even when you wake up also, you stand there like a zombie sitting there and you say, what's happening? I do not know. It is not. As long as it is active, immediate connection is there, connection is given. Just like when you put on the switch, the light comes instantaneously and it illumines all the objects. There is no distance between the object and the light, correct? Is there a distance? There's no distance. So the moment light comes on, all objects are illuminated immediately. The same way, the light, the tube light which is supposed to be there, light which is there, is the one which is borrowed the sentiency or the luminousness from the electricity which is not seen, correct? The electricity we don't see, we know it is there. Do we go and check, or we go and check for the wire to see every time that the wire is running or not? We know that there's wire there. We know there's electricity is running there. We know the power is there. We never bother to check because it is taken for granted that electricity is there already. We do not question it unless somebody tells you there's no electricity. So an example here is the electricity which is passing in our house is not seen by naked eye, but we assume it is there. So as long as the bulb is not in connection with the electricity or no connection is there, it is not manifest. But the moment it is connected with the light of the bulb and there is once you put switch on, like wake up in the morning, the connection is immediate. It doesn't take time. Even tube light also will flicker. Even if you have a tube light also, it will not come immediately on, but the light, you will see the immediate flick, first one. Then you flick a couple of times, then light will come. Whereas if you got the other bulbs which are instantaneous, immediately the light will come on. So, in the same way, the connection between the Atma and the mind is instantaneous. It's called Chaitanyaha Pratibimbaha. And because of this Pratibimbaha, the image being seen as Satyam and Ahankara taking over this person's actions, he becomes the Karta. So he becomes a doer. I see, I walk, I talk, I eat, I am tall, I am happy, I am sad. All of them becomes associated to this particular Ahankara which is connected with this. Hope you got it? Whereas the Ahankara is actually is a real doer. He's a person who's actually doing everything. But the Ahankara itself doesn't have existence independently outside of consciousness. Correct? So the consciousness is the one which lends existence to the Ahankara, and the Ahankara now takes over the ownership and then makes us do the things as though it is the real doer. Then, Vyaptaha Bodhohi Jayate. So Vyaptaha means this is pervaded. So this Ahankara or the reflection of the consciousness is pervaded in the entire mind. So now the reflection which is gathered by the Ahankara or by this Chidabasaha now transmits the entire knowledge to all the connections. So the sensory powers are connected by a wire. Our power of seeing, power of touch, everything is already hooked up to the mind, indirectly connected. So the mind becomes illumined, all the sensory powers are illumined automatically. There is no need for it to turn switch on. Correct? They all operate independently. So the eyes operate, see independently, ears do independently. All of them can operate together also. You can walk, you can talk, you can listen, you can feel, you can do any activity. All of them are in parallel. Right? There's no sequential activity saying that I should only first walk, then I should talk. Right? You can swallow food, be in the class. You can sleep, you can be in the class. You can hear, you can be in the class. All of them are possible simultaneously. Why? Because the Chidabasaha has got the capacity to just illumine everything together, and it makes you think that yes, everything is perfect. So this is the real enemy. The Ahankara is the real enemy. That is what one has to really watch for it. And how do we resolve Ahankara is a difficult thing. But the Acharya explains how to do this. So, Vyapto Bodho hi jayata. Bodha means the illumines, or the what which is illumines or perceived in the mind called Bodha. Then, Buddhehe Shabdhadi Basaha. So in the same way, the sound also is taken as an example. So here, the sound is taken as an example here, as a reflection of consciousness. You can take even eye also. Right? Shrotram you can take, Chakshushu you can take. But here, the Acharya has given Shabdaha Adihi. So Adihi means etc. So Chaitanyam as the Atma takes the form of Vishaya. So the object is now formed. The object is formed. And the object is the one which attracts our mind. Object is what we enjoy. And the object is the one which gives us pleasure or dukkha. So we have now gone very far away from Ahankara is still control. It is saying that you do this, it's still waiting and watching everything how you are doing. It wants you to be in control complete like this. So the person now wanders off on his own, doing things on his own, irrespective of the fact that the person is going wrong direction. While the Ahankara is still there, holding tight. Oh, I will not leave this person now. Let him go and enjoy. Correct. But the moment you resolve those things, the objects itself resolved in the subject also is understood as the very essence of one's own Rupam, then the Ahankara doesn't have any place. Ahankara just runs away, disappears. Or it is made powerless, you can say. It doesn't disappear, it is made powerless. It no longer operates on its own, and you are the master of it. So you know what you want, and you know how do you want to be done, and you are in absolute control over mastery. Right? So Shama, Dhamma, Titiksha, Uparamaha, we saw, right? Datta Bodha class. So these are all there. So Buddhehe Shabdhadi Vasaha Tena Mo Mukhyate Jagat. So Tena means this entire Jagat or the people in this world, Tena Mo Mukhyate means they are falsely perceived or they are really under delusion. Mo Mukhyate. See, Mo Mukhyate means very, very deluded. So they are very deluded and they are they're perceiving this as the doer. The Atma is not a doer, and superlative degree of moha is called mo mukhyate. See, moham itself means delusion. And mo mukhyate means what? This person is actually super deluded or completely out of control, he doesn't know what he's doing and is under the sense, under the complete vashaha of the objects. So he's an object-oriented person. And objects are going to give him pleasure, objects are going to give him pain. He lives in the realm of the objects. So he doesn't know how to come to subject at all unless somebody tells, hey, what are you searching for? He said, no, I'm searching for the happiness in the object. He said, this object is not going to give you happiness. How? Because the object is not there tomorrow for you. Oh, so what is that by which I'll become happiness? Then he say that you understand what the subject is. Then from the object, the teacher brings you to the subject matter. Correct? So Shastram only brings you from focusing from outside into inside. And from the inside, you now manage how these things are seen. So the Mithyatvam of the universe is being brought out by Shastram. And in the Mithyatvam of the entire thing, you see Satyatvam of the Atma, of yourself. So this is how the teacher does, this is how the Shastram explains to you. It does not pull you physically from anything. The Sandra calling it. So tena mo mukhyate jagat. So Chaitanya pratibhimbena tyapto bodho hi jayate buddhe shabdhadipir vasaha tena mo mukhyate jagat. So one must not superimpose or one must not let the ahankara manage one's activities. So this is the essence of that particular mantra. Then, verse number 5, let's look at verse number 5. So verse number 5 talks about how this Chaitanyam and Atma cannot be separated physically. So, if I do Shravanam and Mananam, etc., I cannot separate Shravanam, I cannot separate Mananam. It happens together because it is part of the whole process. So you cannot say that, this is Shravanam, this is Mananam. It happens together. So you are listening at the same time. Mananam also is happening to some extent because there is a correction of the previous error which is happening simultaneously, correct? So as I explained to you now the concepts, you would have understood before what I had told you before. And there could have been some small adjustment which you are making in the correction, in the mind. Now, this is not something you are going to park in the park, saying that, now this is what I'm assuming now, and I'm going to revisit it later and then correct myself. So correction happens to some extent immediately, and some corrections will happen later. So this is what it says here, that Chaitanya Bhasyata Chaitanya Bhasyatya Aham Tadatyam Cha Tadasyayat idam sha prahane naf paraha so anubhuvo bhavet. So Chaitanyaha Bhasyataha, first word. Chaitanyaha Bhasyataha means this ahankaraha being illumined by the Chaitanya, Atma. So Atma is the one which illumines the ahankaraha, and this way this also becomes knowledge. So the illumined also becomes a knowledge. There is pure knowledge and manifested knowledge. So pure knowledge is something which cannot be comprehended. You cannot know what pure knowledge is because it is pure. It is supposed to be, see the word we use pure consciousness and consciousness because when you say pure consciousness, it means that consciousness which has got not manifested yet. It is in the form of unmanifest. So there is nothing like pure and impure consciousness. Consciousness, when it gets manifested with upadhi, gets a name called consciousness. Consciousness, when it doesn't get reflected with upadhi, it becomes its unmanifest form. It is called pure consciousness. So always this consciousness is always pure, unmanifest only. But due to the manifesting medium being available, it becomes manifest and it's called consciousness. So here also Chaitanya Bhasyataha. So the ahankara being illumined by the Chaitanyam, this ahankara also becomes a knowledge source, a source of knowledge. Then aham ha tadatyam cha. So aham ha means what? This is a peculiar way to remove the aham. So aham means the ahankara. So aham ha means it talks about ahankara. Right? And tadartyam. So this is the ahankara gets associated due to natural connection. It is something which cannot be separated physically. You cannot go and look for the ahankara and then pull it out. Saying that let me pull the ahankara out of the person and keep it aside. Because it is part and parcel of the whole package. So you have to deal with it just by having an entire structure. You have the physical body, sthulaha, sukshmaha, karana prapanchaha, manaha, buddhi, chit, ahankaraha, all of them put together, and the consciousness, all of them together is a package. And using this bundle, you'll have to somehow segregate this by negating everything and arriving at the truth. So that is what is ahankara says here. So the tadhartyam. Then idam amshaha prahanena. So idam amshaha means what? This idam amshaha, this part of idam. Prahanena means when it's destroyed and destruction happens in this. See, prahana means destruction. So idam amshaha prahanena paraha so anubhavo bhave. So the paramaha means the ultimate truth or paramatma, you say here. Anubhavo bhave. So the person now enjoys the status of being the paramatma. So anubhavaha should not be taken as being experience. So anubhavaha na bhavet. You should take it like this. Anubhavaha na bhavet. So the paraha is supposed to be the ultimate paramatma or the ultimate achieved to be achieved. So saha atma paraha anubhavo na bhavet. That's what you should take it. So what remains is only the Atma. So the Paraha says that Atma is the one who only remains. And this Atma is of the nature of na anubhavo bhavet. So Atma cannot be experienced. This Atma cannot be quantified. So the fifth summary, fifth verse is a culmination or the summary of the first four, where it says that you cannot look for the Atma separately. You cannot go and look for what is Atma, what is Ahankara, because these two are tied together like this. You cannot separate them physically. You can only separate them cognitively. And when you separate them cognitively, the Ahankara gets dropped automatically. Because Ahankara belongs to the Idam. And Idam is what is Mithya. Correct? Ahankara belongs to Idam. And Idam belongs to Mithya. Idam, Aham. So all of the Idam, etc., physical body also Idam. Ahankara along with the physical body which illumines is also Idam. So Idam gets resolved. Only remains is what? Idam Amsha Prahane means what? This Amsha Prahane means this particular Amsha is removed. Saha Atma Paraha Anubhavaha Na Bhavet. So then what remains is only the Atma, and that is not experienced. So you must not go and search for Atma Anubhavaha. One must not go and say that now I have found the experience, Atma, I am enjoying the Atma. Because Atma is not something cannot be enjoyed. See, idoru prachana. When a person has got newfound knowledge, right, he becomes a jnani. He says, I am enjoying, reveling in the Atma, I am enjoying the Atma, I am experiencing the Atma. What he means to say is that he is in Ananda. He has actually found what limitlessness means. He has discovered, but the word discovered or the person taking ownership of what he was before gets translated into experienced. So anything which you see in the realm, somebody does meditation, somebody does all these things, Ananda, etc. It is attributed to this experience called Ananda. So Atma cannot be experienced. That's what it says here. Saha Atma Paraha. What remains is the ultimate Atma. Anubhava, Anubhavo na bhave. So Anubhavaha means it is not possible to experience. So once you understand the Atma, you are that. So Tat Tvam Asi, they say. So you are that, it means that's it. There is no more discussion about the Atma. There is no more discussion about how I am enjoying the Atma. I am finding this new experience. I am now, reveling in Ananda, etc. is not talked about because the person already is fullness. So there is no need to talk about fullness anymore. You got the idea? Okay. So this is what is called the Buddhi Aparada Prakaranam. It is a correction only. It's only a slight correction. It is not a major correction. See, the people who come to this class, or who study this particular text are already exposed to this text for a very long time, or already exposed to this, basic concept about Atma, Anatma, etc. For a very long time they have been exposed. They already studied with a teacher for a lengthy period of time. They have been studying the teacher for lengthy. They already know the concepts. It is not recommended for a person, newcomer who doesn't know anything at all. What is Atma? Leading question, what is Anatma? What is Titiksha? What is the Shad Tripuhu? Or Sadhana Chatushtayam Nandan Gepan. Then it becomes difficult for the person to comprehend what it is. So this is only a correction. So Buddhi Aparada Prakaranam is only a small twist in correction where the person habitually sometimes makes a mistake. Occasionally makes a habitual error, which is possible for everybody. So what this text does is, this text corrects the persons so that you get tuned and do not make the same mistake. So it's a mind adjustment in that. That's why Buddhi Aparadaha means a mistake committed by intellect. Not Purna intellect. Just a little bit. Some correction is there. That's why the texts are small. It is not very big text. See, unlike the Upanishads, etc., which is very, very long and everything else, It's a concise text. Small things are being said. Okay, this is called Jivan Muktaha. This is called Ishvara Arpana, Ishvara Prakarana. This is called Buddhi Avra Prakarana. This is called Karmayana Samuchayam. So small things are being said with the powerful message, not to forget or to reinforce what you studied already before. Is it clear, Pushpa ji? Okay. You got your mute on, I think. Still can't hear you.
Now?
Now better, yes.
Okay. No, you know how we say it is not the Atma that is the doer. It is reflected consciousness and the ahankara and the Atma, you only cognitively separate it. So then when there is this doership that's happening, what do we associate that doership with?
Doership is always the karma, an activity. So the doership, what is the doership? Doership itself means the act of doing.
Once again?
Doership means the act of doing.
Yes.
So when you say act of doing means...
So the doer, who is the doer there?
So the doer is the one who associates himself with the body, mind, sense complex called doer.
That is the ahankara.
Ahankara, along with it, ahankara is the one which drives the sensory sensory powers to do the things. So it's like the officer who is sitting there, and the office is the people are there. So the officer is the one who commands these things to, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. And the ahankara is like, it's a thought. See, the ahankara is a vritti. Aham vritti is the one which rises. Right? So it's a vritti which is rising, and the vritti is the one which makes us do things. So the vritti is not thought about, it just leaves. Correct? See, we've got a lot of vrittis, correct? So many vrittis, thoughts come there. But a particular vritti is interested because we are fascinated by this. So the ahankara latches on to the vritti and says, now let's strengthen the vritti now more. And that vritti, that particular knowledge which is there, ahankara, which is there, it now controls the person's way of functioning life. So the desire is now created, the desire becomes, the object is pursued, object is not God, he gets angry, he gets dejected, he gets happiness, all the things are there. And the ahankara now actually it's not something physical. It is just, a thought. This is a fantasy in the beginning. But the fantasy becomes stronger because success is being associated to that. So if you're successful, doing a lot of projects continuously, ahankara comes and I'm a successful project manager. I'm a successful, nobody can defeat me. Is there anybody who can challenge me? He doesn't know anything about it. I have done so many things. Who talks this? This is ahankara talks. Correct? This is the thought of being successful or not successful at what drives. So what Shastram tells is that this is only a falsehood perception. It is not always the truth, and you must not be a prey to this particular notion. So you be successful. Nothing wrong with that. But do not just be swayed into that and do not fall entirely into this because it will lead you into the wrong direction. So he says, do your duties, be natural, and do not fall prey to this. So that is called a doership, and the enjoyership comes together. So who is a doer has also the enjoyer. If you are the doer, I cannot be the enjoyer. So the phalam also goes to you, the karma also goes to you. Okay. You got that?
Yeah.
So separating is not possible, but understanding what ahankara does, what desire does to you, what vritti does to you, and where you focus on is important. So the aham vritti is what is being said as the one which is I sense that I am this, I am this, I am this. And I am this, I am this, I am this has to be resolved slowly saying that I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. What do you say? I am that. So I am not this, I am that. So from idam, you go to that particular thing, just that tattvamasi. I am that, I'm not this. neither is the ahankara now. See, Nirvana Shatakam has got everything. It says, I'm not this body, I'm not this ahankara, I'm not this, I'm not this. But that is an advanced text where he resolves. Nirvana Shatakam means the person becomes totally free. He removes everything and says that I'm neither of any of this. I'm not a human being. I'm not ahankara. I'm not this. Chaitanya, everything I'm good. I do not have anything with this. So understanding that is what is talked about here. Was it clear to you? Explained to you? You'll get this slowly. Do not have to worry about it. All you have to just keep, listening to
Reminding yourself.
Yes.
Mhm.
Shishadri ji, you're okay? Jaishankar ji, you're okay so far?
Yes, yes.
Subbu, have you got any questions from the class? You built okay?
Yeah, okay, Shankar, no problem.
So we'll do verse number 6, chapter 6 next class. Chapter 6 talks about Vishesha Apoha Prakaranam. So Vishesha Apohanam means what? Removal. And Visheshaha means attributes. So Visheshaha Apoha Prakaranam. 5 verses are there, small verses. And again, it just builds on the previous thing what you learned. And it keeps hammering, same concept again and again with another example under small revelations, small bits of information there. So the text keeps building upon what you learned. So you remove those previous things before. It again brings back you and again adds furthermore, clarity around that. Okay. So we'll see in the next class how we go with this. Om Purnamadah Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Namaste. For those attending the Sasama class at 4:30, you're more than welcome to attend. We have the Gita class at 7:45 as usual.
Birthday wishes to Vasanti, please.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hari Om.